Another edition of Health IQ. So, for those of you who joined us, we want to thank AARP for their sponsorship and support of the changes that are happening inside of our community each and every day, and having an organization there to help and advocate for all of us. I've got a distinguished panel tonight. The famous, the one, the only Regina Belle. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
You know, I'm here hanging out with fame and someone who loves my community. I mean, what else is there? I mean, I'm not getting ready to run in these streets. I'm definitely going to be right here staying in place. So, you know, I got a perfect situation with you right now, and it's going to be a strong hour where we reshare and talk about, you know, caretaking for loved ones. I got my brother Dolvett, who about a couple months ago got me on the right path. And, you know, this shirt's nice and, you know, small now, given the fact, you know, look kind of crazy in my clothes, but, you know, encouraged me to change my behavior. I reduced the sugar 1,000%. Don't bring it in the house, then I don't eat it. So, Dolvett, thank you very much, brother. I just, you know, it's the whole thing. I mean, it's like grandfather has definitely died and had diabetes.
Oh my, okay.
Father had prostrate and definitely was borderline diabetes. So I don't know that I should take myself out of that equation unless I'm going to take myself out of that equation. So, you know, that genetics don't lie. So, you know,
DNA don't lie.
Either volunteer or not. So, you know, Dolvett really gave great suggestions, great movement. You know, at the end of the day, it's about movement. And even as we care for our loved ones, it's still about movement. Because, you know, I don't know that it could. So when he encouraged me, I was like, that's what a trainer says I should do. See, for me, I'm going with the specialist. Everybody else, y'all can judge and go with yourselves. You can trust your own judgment, but nobody pays you for that judgment. I'm looking at the people that get paid for what they do. See,
listen, we all got bills, people.
No, I'm just saying, I want to go to the guy that the famous people, non-famous people trying to change their lives, people that have been on television and made results. I'm going to that person. Yeah. I'm not getting ready to trust my judgment. That's not what I do. Right. You know, at the end of the day, he changes lives, and that's what's important about the entire program, you know, when you think about it. So let's get right into it. Caring for loved ones, I think during COVID, but just caring for loved ones in general and knowing that we have that responsibility. Gina, what is that like? Like, what is that lifting like? And what don't we see when we even start that journey?
Caring for loved ones, it's an interesting journey. I've been on both sides of the coin. In 2009, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. So I had to be cared for. And a lot of the times, let me just say this, a lot of the times, the person that you think is the one that's going to be taking care of you is not always the one. My niece actually moved from New York and was helping to take care of me. And what she did basically was kind of get my house in order because my family was kind of freaking out. You know, they really didn't know what to expect, how to handle it. And, you know, everybody was willing, but everybody didn't really know what to do. And she was pretty much the calm cheerleader that kind of mapped out everything, knew everybody's talents, and got everybody on board. She was my introduction to understanding how to make a village work. And so now being on the other side, the flip side, and being a caregiver instead of being cared for, I had a great institution with my niece initially when I had to be cared for. So now it's about utilizing as many assets as you can that are reliable, because some are not. Some things are going to be trial and error. But for the most part, you have to recognize, number one, that you cannot, can I repeat that to all my caregivers out there, you cannot pull that bus by yourself. You have to have some help. And maybe everybody can't care for your loved one, Maybe they can't be the one, in the house with them and helping them, but to eat and get dressed and to be washed. But maybe they can go and take care of the finances. Maybe they can take care of going to get medicines. Maybe they can be the one that, sits down and makes the calls to the doctors or gets the meds together. So it's a lot of different things that you can activate the community to do, what I call your village to do, that doesn't make your job as a caregiver become so overwhelming that a lot of caregivers end up dying before the person that they care for dies. And so at the end of the day, yes, that's real talk. So at the end of the day, if you don't recognize that even though you're caring for somebody, you are a person too, and somebody has to care for you. And if you don't take out that time, a lot of the time that call won't get answered. So, it's so many pieces to it, but if I could kind of put it in a nutshell, it is caregiving. I think the success of caregiving is understanding how to work all the elements around you to make it work for the person that you're caring for. That makes sense?
It makes perfect.
If you said it, you said it from your heart. If somebody ain't trying to receive it, that's another thing. Yeah, it made a whole lot of sense, and it was a whole lot. Dolvett, caring for before and even caring for yourself, because I think a lot of times when you're a caregiver and you forget that you need to exercise. Can you give us idea on loving your loved one? And I think that we don't even give ourselves credit when we're taking care of somebody before it's the end of the journey. It's when you go to get medicine. It's when you participate in a person's life and you're doing things that they used to do and just begin the cycle. What's it like for you, and what has it been like, or what was your experience? It is your experience, though.
It's a great question, because I think what happens is caretakers are amazing human beings. There was a statistic a couple of years ago that said that the number one occupation that holds the highest percentage of obesity is nurses. Nurses have these crazy hours. They take care of so many other people. They put their self last. So they go to work, they take care of people, they go home, they take care of their family, and they're truly last. So to speak on and expand on what Regina said about when she had that cheerleader, I think, the best caretakers are the people that take care of themselves in a way that they could be the example of the person they're taking care of. She spoke to how sometimes the caretaker passes away before the person they're taking care of, because they're so focused on their job, they don't necessarily make their health a priority. Someone who takes care of themselves is going to say to the person they're taking care of, I feel so good because I went for a walk yesterday. Let's get outside and go for a walk. But if someone in themselves don't feel good about going for a walk or being active, they won't necessarily promote that for the person they're taking care of. I did a keynote a couple of years back in DC when I had the honor to meet former President Barack Obama. And I was on this panel with other doctors and surgeons and things of that nature. And someone stood up and asked a very specific question. They said, what can we do as doctors to be, or surgeons, or at this place to really, really affect how we help people? My response was, doctors should be a walking, talking example of what they ask their patients to become, and that's healthy. Why aren't more doctors wearing sneakers when they're doing diagnostics? Why, more importantly, and the whole room stood up and asked this question, why isn't there more gyms inside hospitals? Because movement, Munson, you can attest to this. Movement reduces stress. It alleviates depression. It elevates serotonin, et cetera, et cetera. If I am visiting someone that I love and they're going through a time and I'm visiting them in a hospital, I don't want to go home, I could just go to the gym inside of the hospital. It's unfortunate that they have a a chapel there or something like that when someone passes, but there's no movement involved. There's no way of relieving stress involved in locations that are medical based. It's the same thing with caretaking. It's the same thing with being the example for the people you care for.
Thank you. I think somebody asked me, they said, well, what do you think Dolvett knows about this? And I say, I think Dolvett knows. I said, because it's not so one-sided. It's not, oh, let's live. Let's create that health disparity and let's find some solutions and talk about the solutions that we've all thought about. My favorite doctor, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And I apologize, everyone. There's a little bit of a thunderstorm perking up in North Carolina, so I lost connection, but thanks for having me.
It's safe.
You're here on Health IQ, and obviously we're talking about healthcare and caring for our loved ones. But in the space of that conversation, I really want us to be thinking innovatively. And I hope that people can apply what you all are sharing. So if you're going to a hospital to support a loved one, take a walk before and take a walk after, because you got to decompress after having that experience. At least that's what I took away from what Dolvett said. So if you could help us start.
Absolutely. So I did hear what Dolvett said, and I just want to add that I think as physicians, as healthcare professionals, sometimes we're so focused on helping others, we literally forget to take care of ourselves.
Facts.
And that is the same thing that we see as physicians when we interact with caregivers. And so whenever I'm interacting with caregivers and I'm recommending that they continue to advocate for themselves and take care of themselves as well, because what I tell caregivers, if you're not taking care of yourself, you sure can't take care of nobody else.
Facts.
And I think it's important for me to be transparent. So when I'm interacting with caregivers, I tell them that I'm telling myself the same thing, to make sure, I'm walking, I'm exercising, I'm eating well, because it's important for me to do the things that I need to do in order to be there for my family as well. So it's one of those things that we all have to remind ourselves to do. And sure. I bet Dolvett has to remind himself sometimes
all the time
in regards to things that he needs to do better. So we're all in this together. And the bottom line is we all can do better as well.
Let me say this real quick, Munson, in response to that. Every single day we have to take a shower. Every single day, right? We don't think about it. We don't second guess it. It's like, okay, I need to take a shower. You never graduate from taking care of yourself. Every single day you have to take care of yourself. And taking care of yourself should be something you want to do. Not something you wish you can do, not something you hope to do, but something we act different when we do the things we want to do versus the things we hope will happen, right? It's a different emotion, it's a different direction. So I want to take care of myself. So I wake up with that desire to want to do something for me. Because I know that if I take care of me, the people I love are going to get the best version of me.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about caretakers who want to take care of other people, but the people you're taking care of aren't necessarily getting the best version of you. Because you might be tired, you might be fatigued, you might be worn out, you might be at high levels of stress, right? There could be so many other factors that you can't really optimize the best version of yourself to really, truly do your job. And by the way, a lot of your job isn't necessarily lining up just what needs to be done for the person. A lot of your job can simply also be making that person feel good about themselves, highlighting their day, allowing them an opportunity to really celebrate it's sunny outside, right?
Right.
But if you don't have that mindset, you can't pour that into someone else.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Regina,
if I can jump in real quick.
you can jump
I
in
agree.
real fast anytime. You know, this is a family conversation. See,
I agree with everything that Dolvett said, because here's the thing. I want us to remember that whoever is caring for, first of all, you got to want to do the job. That's number one. I think sometimes when I first started, I talked about how the person that everybody thought would be the one taking care of me was not the one. And just because baby girl is at home doesn't mean she's the one that's qualified to take care of big mama or whoever it is needs to be taken care of. A lot of the times we kind of designate that job to who is closest, and not looking at the fact that maybe somebody has to make a sacrifice to get the proper job, the job done in an excellent manner. And so a lot of the times, once we choose the right person, Dolvett, I agree 100%. You've got to consider yourself, excuse me, because if you don't, then you carrying your baggage onto the person that you're trying to take care of. It doesn't work. It doesn't work any day of the week. They don't deserve that, and you don't deserve that. You know, I tell people all the time when I'm doing these lectures for AARP, I tell them, you know, sometimes I had to go outside and just scream, you know, because of things that I was taking care of my brother. I was the main caregiver, still am, my mother and father. And sometimes, you know, you just don't even know if you're doing a good job. And so at some point, you know, you just got to take out a moment. I would get in my car and just scream, and then I'd go back in the house. Hey, how's everybody doing? You know, everything, because I got it off my chest.
Yeah,
you know,
you have to get that release out. It's important to get that release out.
I tell people you need 30 seconds. You need at least 30 seconds of crazy once a week, once every 3 days, whatever your cycle is. You got to have that little moment of crazy that you get that out, and then you come back and do the job that you need to do. What I did with my niece when she was caring for me, I used to make sure that she would go get a massage. I would, you know, give her a couple of dollars. Hey, you need to go to the mall. But auntie, you need not, somebody else can do that. I need you to go, because I needed her to take care of her so that she could take the best care of me. So I love me.
Yeah,
I really do. I love me. I want you to do the right thing by me, and you can't do right by me if you don't do right by you. So, you know, if we as caregivers understand that, I think we would do better jobs at doing what it is we need to do. And I walk every day. I do 3 miles every day. Look, when I want to, Dolvett, and when I don't want to.
There you go.
Which is
there
probably,
There's
20% of the time.
there's a saying that I like that says, I wrote this the other day on my social platform. Check on your strong friends. Check on your strong friends. A lot of times we take for granted, oh, I ain't got to worry about Dr. Faison. She good. She down in North Carolina. She doing her thing. Her life is wonderful. But you don't realize, right, that the people that are so strong or seemingly strong are the ones you need to pour into, because they're always giving of themselves to others. Those are the ones who really need the recharge so they can continue to do the work. So it's important that the caretakers have someone that's taking care of them. You need to get recharged. You need to find someone, if you don't already. I always say, I give advice, I do lectures, I do motivational speeches all the time, but I have a council of intelligent, strong Black men and women that I lean on and that I pull from and I get advice from, so that I can recharge, fill my cup in order to go out and do my work. I think Munson made a joke, like, you know, people like, can Dolvett speak to this stuff? To me, health isn't just about how many push-ups you can do. Health to me is, what's your spiritual health? What's your mental health? What's your emotional health? And let's speak to that. You have to be well-rounded. So we got to have those outlets and those conciliary, those nights at the round table in our lives, so to speak, to really help elevate the best versions of ourselves.
It's also important for healthcare professionals. Granted, they have patients that they are seeing, but when those caregivers accompany those patients, those caregivers are an extension of those patients. And when I was practicing, I made sure that I gave the caregivers their necessary attention as well. And so I think it's very important for healthcare professionals to make sure that they are checking in appropriately with those caregivers, to make sure that they are taking care of themselves, mind, body, and soul. It's so important.
Yeah, but COVID has created a whole new program, because if you're caretaking for an active, and one of the things I think that we miss is everybody that you're caretaking for and with is not bedridden. Many of our seniors are active.
Mm-hmm.
They are not, you give them a little care, but right now keeping a 87-year-old mother at home with COVID, making sure she's wearing her mask when she's used to being out at the grocery store, talking to everybody. I mean, and then if you have somebody, even if they're in assisted living right now, you really can't see them. You really got to make sure your nurses are adhering to the same practices inside. So COVID's thrown a whole new program, in the game.
I'm living it.
What you living, Doc?
So my mom is 84 years old, going on 23. And
I love it.
Is a social butterfly, very active in her community, was a public school teacher for 32 years. So everybody in the community loves her. She became a member of my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, when she was 70 years old.
Go,
Get out.
I love her.
And so, one of the reasons why I'm in North Carolina now is I'm based in New Jersey and New York, but mom lives in North Carolina. My brother lives in North Carolina. And when COVID entered the scene, my brother and I aligned very quickly that we had concerns about mom using a mask. We had concerns about her friends popping over to the house without masks, without doing the appropriate physical distancing, all of that. And so with COVID, we made the decision that mom should stay with my brother and his amazing wife in Durham, North Carolina. And so that's what she's been doing primarily, during this pandemic. And I was able to come home to work from North Carolina, if you will, for about 3 weeks, so that mom would have the opportunity to be back in her home, because you all know people want to be in their own homes. They don't like being in somebody else's house. And so that's why I'm in North Carolina now. And she's so excited to be in her own house. She can mess with her own thermostat. It's probably 80-some degrees in this house. I'm about to burn up. But it's all good, because this is mama's house. If she wants it hot, it's going to be hot. It's
just a big sauna. Good, Doc. Just a big sauna. Don't worry about it.
Yes. So, and even when I've been home, I've had to, mom, put on your mask. The doorbell rings and she jumps up. I'm like, mom, I got it. Let me talk to the people. I put my mask on and I give people the eye. What you doing here?
Girl.
So
oh my gosh.
It's a very interesting process. But we've got to do what we've got to do in regards to decreasing this transmission. So that means wearing the mask. That means I call it physical distancing. I don't like the word social distancing, but physical distancing at least 6 feet. and the frequent washing of the hands, and using
Right.
the appropriate hand sanitizer, because our active elders, as Mr. Steve said, they don't naturally understand this process. They want to do what they want to do, and as caregivers, it's very important for us to remind them, and also with our loved ones in assisted living and nursing homes, this the lack of being able to interact with them face to face. And it's been wonderful seeing these facilities try to be more innovative by using FaceTime, by making sure you can do these walk-bys by the windows so that
Right.
they can see your faces. And
Yeah.
some facilities are using walkie-talkies so you can see and talk with that barrier of
I
the
like
window
that.
there.
Yeah.
So these are all important, innovative avenues that some of these facilities have had to do, because that social isolation, can you imagine how that can cause people to become depressed, stressed, anxious? So it's so important that we still maintain contact as best as we can.
I think everybody's depressed, and if you're not active, if you're not resetting and recharging at this moment, for all individuals, it is definitely, you're going to find depression because you're 20 pounds heavier. You're going to find some depression because you're really not eating right. I mean, at this moment, I don't think I've eaten out more than once since March 10th. So I forgot I could cook. But I've learned to meal prep. So, I cook 2 meals at one time. So I think that, to me, because I don't want to talk about care as though everybody's bedridden. I mean, like you shared, Regina, some people are caregiving and the person just has injury. Some people have other diseases, and many people don't understand even a dementia. Like people
Right.
say, well, do they remember you? I never cared if my dad remembered me, but when he stopped swallowing and his body stopped talking to him, that's when you have a new moment. So if you want to know why you need to be working out before people start taking care of you, these are some of the reasons. And I think those are the insights that we want. Transportation's an issue. And with COVID, it's even more complicated as it relates to moving and providing transportation. What's your experience with that, Doc?
Wow, very good question. So, by me being in New Jersey, by me being based in New Jersey and New York, obviously with New York and its amazing public transit system, that has been in the forefront of the news. And when we look at the bus system and the subway system, even though those are still ongoing, the ridership is definitely substantially less than the pre-pandemic levels. But as we think about our community, we know that African Americans are, many are in the front line. They are the essential workers, and
Say that.
they didn't stop working. And
3% of all Black and brown people cannot work from home.
Yes.
Cannot work from home.
Yes. And they have had to utilize, in many cases, the subways and the buses. And you think about it, it's so challenging to have that 6 feet distance between
Correct.
two people on subways and buses. So, therein lies the challenge. So given the, respiratory transmission, it's so important that when you're using public transportation, that you have the mask. However you can, distance yourself, try to distance yourself as much as possible before you leave the house to get to whatever transportation avenue you're using. Make sure you're washing your hands. Make sure that you have on you hand sanitizer as well, the appropriate hand sanitizer, as well as some wipes. Avoid, touching your eyes and nose and mouth with unwashed hands. And then that also leaves these various kiosks. Can you imagine all these kiosks in the subway system? Really try to limit your use of these kiosks. If you instead of using a kiosk every day, try to refill that card every 3 or 4 days. Anything that's going to keep you from reducing your interaction with kiosks, because as you can imagine, that would be a frequently touched item.
Yeah.
So
that's that New York feel. I think for some who are in Atlanta and LA and are caring for care, taking or providing care, that transportation for somebody going to dialysis who is a senior is a concern. That transportation, and I don't know what everybody's experience is with just how do you move a senior that you're taking care of and move them in and out during COVID, because that's a big issue. And you worry about the person even if they're getting picked up. One question for you, Dolvett, is what are some of the good tips to take care of yourself and your parents when you and your parents are over 50 years old?
My space obviously is activity and movement. I think one of the best ways to take care of yourself and your parents that are over 50 years old, I said it before, you never graduate from taking care of yourself. So get out and go for a walk with your parents. Turn on the TV, and when you're watching your favorite shows, the second a commercial comes on, you guys do as a family. It's commercial time. I mean, it's movement time. Move as a family. Sit down on the couch, stand up. Do that until the show comes back on. That's at least a minute and change. My television days, I got to remember the time frame in which it was, but at least gives you time to move. Speaking on the transportation thing real quick though, Munson, I just wanted to throw in there, I always wish that there was a way to purchase Uber and Lyft rides through the system in advance. Like you would purchase a card to get on the train in New York and do this. I wish there was a car or something I could, I'm just going to gift my grandma some Uber rides, right? Some Lyft rides. So maybe she does want to go to the store or my son or somebody like that. I just wish there was a system. Does anybody know anyone over Uber and Lyft where you could pay advance for someone else to spend money to get around and go around in terms of the transportation? Flipping now back to that last point I want to make in terms of when you're in your 50s with your parents, be the example, walk with them, create activity for them and with them.
How about you, Regina? Any tips? Transportation and obviously you're
for the people that I'm caring for. My brother is in a rehabilitation facility. He had a massive stroke about 5 years ago, and we had him transferred here to Georgia maybe a year after he was in his facility. So he's been here for the last 4 years. So that's not really an issue that I have with transporting him, because they kind of take care of that. If he has to leave the facility and go to the hospital, which is literally down the street, they get the paramedics and they take him back and forwards. With this COVID issue, I kind of hijacked them in the parking lot when I know he has a doctor's appointment. And, me and my mom go, because it's the only time we can see him. So, we put on our masks and we go over and, are able to kind of lay eyes on him. I think that's like, and I'm sure Dr. Faison would agree with me, that's really difficult for people that you're caring for, or people that you just out and out love, that you can't see them. I mean, it's cool to be able to see them through a window. It's cool to be able to see them through technology. I thank God every day for the scientists, because they're pretty much the prophets of today, and how they've dictated certain things from COVID to technology and a number of other things. But it's just not the same. You know, human touch goes a really long way. And so not being able to touch that person, I mean, and my brother and I, we grew up in a touchy-feely home. So, you know, my mom, my dad, they always hugged us and told us that they loved us. And, you know, we jumped on each other. We did all kinds of stuff like that. So not being able to have that, that interaction, COVID has definitely put a monkey wrench in our program. So that piece really, that takes us out. I'm grateful though to be an AARP representative, because AARP, I didn't know when I became a representative that I would actually need the service myself later on. So, you know, I myself have logged on to aarp.org to find out a number of things, from even just that they do your taxes for free. Hello. Just they're different resources that, you know, we don't have because we don't avail ourselves to those things. So, you know, I'm a believer. So the Bible says our people perish for a lack of knowledge. Well, I don't think that just means in the church. I mean, I think that means overall, because
Absolutely.
we don't open ourselves to all kinds of information that would be, you know, not just advantageous to us, but for generations to come. You said it yourself, Steve, when you talked about how, you know, your father and your grandfather had experienced a diabetes. And hey, if it's in there, it's probably in there. You know, so at the same token, you know, there's some things that I had to readjust because, you know, heart disease, diabetes, and all that runs in my family. So, you know, there's some things that, although I love to do, I can't do. And if I do it, I have to do it in moderation and not, you know, just as I want. So I'm definitely on that same bus with you. So it's all of those things, I think, you know, in terms of tips that I might have, it's all of those things. And it's so much that you'll learn as you go through the journey. There's no Dr. Spock on this, on caregiving. There's, you know, because every person will be a little bit different from the next person. But there are some very real things that you can do to make sure that you're prepared for whatever happens, making sure that somebody has a living will and testament, making sure that, you know, somebody has access to the finances so that if something goes wrong, nobody's trying to scramble and figure out, well, how do we pay for this? You know, what's your insurance? What does your insurance do? We have to have a better reach into our village to help us with these things, so that when we come to this place, and I promise you most of us will, that we won't be scrambling and everybody will be in position to do what needs to be done.
And I just want to piggyback, Ms. Bell, that information that you're talking about in regards to the outreach to AARP, or whether it's to the Family Caregiving Alliance or the CDC or whatever organization one wants to use, gaining information is the key, because when we don't have information or we have misinformation,
Correct,
that can create stress and worry. So one of
right.
the best
We're having
things
these
that we
y'all
can
having
do,
polite conversations. Doc. I ain't about that polite conversation. Get your money right. Like if you want to get if you literally get your money right. If you're a caretaker, you're near that. You don't know who's gonna be there. If you don't have somebody signed on that account,
Yep.
you can't
Thank
wait
you.
till
Thank you.
you can't wait till you have a stroke to have that situation.
no,
Correct.
absolutely.
And
We've got to plan early. And we know too often, because it's highlighted in the news, people have died
Yeah.
without a will.
Mhm.
Look, they finding wills underneath the couches.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but I think some of those things, Doc, that you're sharing, I just want to keep it really simple. Like literally, you have to go to the bank, and this is the other person who literally gets the account. Like, that's a conversation with the 60, 80, 70-year-old person. It's like, why are you on my account? And then you've got to make sure it's not your cousin, Bebe, who needs a loan every 2 days.
Right.
Not because he's on crack, but just because he's our cousin, and he's been like that his whole life. He drives around, but you can't put him on the account. And I'm just saying, for us to talk out loud to our community, that you must have somebody that is playing that role, and not when your person needs to be taken to the hospital.
Right.
Mrs. T, can I just say this? We definitely,
say it, sister. You say it.
Can we stop feeling bad about having to put our loved ones in a facility, and we know we can't take care of them? My brother has a tracheotomy and a feeding tube. Now, the question is, I sing. What do I look like trying to be a caregiver for him at home? And if something goes wrong, I absolutely have no idea how to handle that. And a lot of us are taking on responsibilities because we feel guilty, because in the African American community, that's what we've been taught. I mean, I grew up seeing in some of my friends' homes, seeing Big Mama in the living room, in a hospital bed. I mean, I'm just being real. And I'm not saying that maybe that can't happen in some situations where she can be cared for properly, but a lot of the times that wasn't the case. And so I'm saying, at the end of the day, like you said, since we're going to be real, let's go on and be real.
Go ahead and keep it 1,000. I think
when we do that, Ms. Belle, we're doing more harm to our loved ones.
Yes.
Exactly.
By trying to keep them at home and take care of them. We're doing way more harm to them, and we just cannot do that.
Yeah, but one of the things that Dolvett shared and when we talked, and I like to share and acknowledge what I took away. You got to have some upper body strength. And he taught, I want to say it was 5. I'm working on 3. He had 5 different areas of the body. At least I think I listen. But far too many of us, if you're not lifting a gallon of water, just lift it. Just put it up, fill it up, and lift arm strength. Because that senior that you're having to help get it in and out of the bed, ultimately, you're going to fail yourself because you have no strength. So all those people that are asking the questions, when Dolvett's saying movement, he's pretty much talking about all your muscle groups.
Well, when I'm speaking to things, I speak to things from the perspective of each one you brought up, and the perspective is preparation. We have to practice preparation, right? Sometimes, especially in our community, we're so invincible, right? We don't necessarily think of the inevitable or what might happen because we live in the space of invincibility. Like, I'm good, ain't nothing gonna happen to me, I'm straight.
Right.
Meanwhile, we're not preparing, especially our elders, to make sure that their transition happens correctly. Oftentimes people pass away, they don't have any money set aside. There's no one setting up life insurance today. There's so many people who have GoFundMe. They don't utilize those things, right? And so when I speak to movement and upper body movement, like Munson brought up, that's a form of preparation. Well, oh, you doing this so you can be strong? No, I'm doing this so I can be healthy. I want my next 10 to be my best 10, right? It's the same thing that we apply in our finances. It's the same thing that we plan for our future. It's the same application that we say to ourselves, okay, I have to prepare as if. That is so important. I'm not gonna wait to get sick to take care of myself. I'm gonna prevent it from happening because I want, again, to make my next 10 my best 10. I'm not gonna wait till someone's on their deathbed to say, all right, now what are we gonna do? How are we gonna pay for this? How are we gonna pay for that? No, you put that in advance now. If grandma is 68, you make sure that, to Munson's point, you set up a bank account, you don't take care of Pookie and them, you take care of grandma, you make sure that her money and her stuff happens for her. And that money is set aside for the future so that, and we have to practice that. We have to make sure that we practice future thought, not present thought only.
Doc, you had something to say?
No, I just, I'm echoing what everybody's saying. In addition to the will, um, it's important to have those documents, for example, the power of attorney, which hopefully a trusted family member or friend is put in charge to make legal decisions
Indeed.
when you are not able to make those decisions for yourself. That healthcare proxy is another important document, which allows a trusted friend or family member to make healthcare decisions on your behalf if you're not able to do so. And those healthcare decisions could be the choice of your healthcare provider, medical treatment, and decisions that are critical as it relates to end of life decisions. All of these, documents that also Ms. Bell mentioned as
Come on,
well.
Doc.
It's very,
Say
very
the other
important.
one. Say it.
Very important to do
You
that.
want to be resuscitated? Come on. We. Do you want to be resuscitated? Those are hard decisions.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
In advance.
Yes.
So they sitting there breaking ribs because you said just letting them go in, and they got a nice plan, and you didn't have
and that. Yes, and you're absolutely correct, Mr. Steve. That living will is the other document, which is clearly important because that's the document in which you are saying right now, in July 2020, if you've never done one, so July 2020, what kind of services do you want to receive? What kind of services do you want withheld? And I know when I had conversations with my mother, because my mother does have a living will, she said, if it looks like whatever my condition is, I'm going to need a ventilator. If that ventilator is going to be short term, that's one thing. If it looks like I'm going to be on a ventilator for long term, that's only going to sustain my life in that
different
state,
conversation.
I don't want it.
Yep.
Don't even go down that route. And that is exactly what is articulated in her living will. And all of us can make those decisions now, while we can, and they will be carried out in the event that things happen.
And you don't want to give away your money, so you've got to have a trust. This should be one of the things that are talked about early on. And once again, just echoing my brother, you don't want to get a trust at 80, trying to figure it out. You had no plan. When we get to trust time, all of a sudden everybody's like, well, what's that? Otherwise you go to probate, then, you lose half of what you had. I mean, it's a problem. And I really think for the caretaker, that's half the battle. You're sitting there trying to figure out somebody's end. And it's happening. It's happening in front of you. You're watching it. Life is deteriorating in front of you. I think the mental anguish, we got 12 minutes, but just if each of you would talk about the psychological issues you face while caretaking and building up the strength to just keep moving forward. And we'll start with you, Regina.
For me, I lost my father in March and to cancer. And I think one of the difficult parts of it is that especially in the African American community, we are accustomed to having a funeral, or as they say in the South, a fume, to be able to, heal. Having that point of being able to see people you haven't seen in years, even down to the smell of the food for what's going on afterwards, the whole night, the whole service is a point of healing. People who knew my dad and people who revered my father would be able to come and just share their stories, maybe some that I never heard. All of that was a way of helping me to be able to heal. Well, I wasn't able to do that. We were able to have less than 10 people at the funeral home because we weren't able to do it at the church. And my husband is a pastor. So it's, when I think about those situations, I know that there's some mental anguish that's going on. I think even people who are maybe dealing with some mental illness, I think now that gives an opportunity, a foundation to be built on in COVID with quarantine and a number of things that you can't participate in that you normally would be able to. So, you know, for me, I'm thankful that, you know, AARP, and I have to say it over and over again, AARP.org. And if you go into family caregiving, they have ways to help us to kind of navigate through these times. Everything from trying to deal with the situation when you can't have a service for your loved one that has gone on, to what do I do if I have corona and there's no caregiver to help. They have so many answers for a lot of these things in which we're talking about to help you plan for the future, the finances, all those different things. AARP was amazing. And down to even our, my mom and my dad's life insurance policies. I didn't need to have a GoFundMe page. Now, granted, I'm in a position where I'm able to pay for some things that maybe other people aren't. But I didn't have to pay anything for my mother and father's, my father's funeral services because he had it covered. You know, my father was a former truck driver. My mother's a meat wrapper. So I didn't come from this home with the silver spoon in my mouth. You know, that came later on. My celebrity came later on. But I came from a good foundation where my mother and my father said, you will not be scrambling when it comes down to what happens to us when we leave here. That will be taken care of. All you have to do is execute. So I'm so glad that AARP.org has a plethora of resources to help us in this time, in this COVID season, and how we're navigating through everything. They have answers to help us do it. And people like you and Dr. Faison and Quince and so on, et cetera, and so forth. We have so many people right here to help us answer these questions that we don't have answers to.
So, got 3 minutes.
You know, okay, so I'll make it quick. Mental health is a real thing. Mental health is a real thing. You know, I think oftentimes we tend to ignore it, act like nothing's wrong. Well, if you're acting like nothing wrong, then something's probably wrong. If you don't have an outlet, if you don't have anyone you can lean on, find someone you can lean on, someone with not like-minded, someone that you respect and you aspire from or inspired by. Put that person in your life. Reach out to that person, because guess what? You can't be a caretaker and not take care of yourself. You have to have a community of strength around you, because you're not forcing yourself. You've given yourself the job to take care of someone else other than yourself. You will deplete. You will hit a wall. Yep. I've seen it. My neighbor right now, her mom and her dad are going through the divorce. He's 82. Mom is 78. She's like, I'm done. She's been taking care of him for 15 years. Oh, she's done. Especially now. We live in an environment where COVID is forcing people to get along in small rooms they may not normally get along in, because they had a chance to go to a job and get away. But now the ceiling is coming down on everyone. And here comes the arguments. Here comes the disagreements. Here comes the not exactly. They're not just getting along. So if you don't have an outlet, if you can't pick up every Tuesday at 4:00 your FaceTime angel and speak to someone that just keeps you smiling and keep you happy, then you need that. And if you're that person, you need it more than the person who doesn't know how to ask for it. You got to get boosted, people. You got to get boosted. You got to get boosted. And you got to look to find your inner strength. People look at me and are like, oh, that's the guy that works out. He got the muscles and da-da-da-da. Now, my inner strength is stronger than any body part I own. My heart is the strongest thing. My head is the strongest thing, and then my body follows. I do that because I invite people in my life that inspire me as I continue to inspire others. That's the method. That's the recipe, and I wish you all success.
Thank you. All right, doctor, we got 3 minutes.
Okay. So what I want to just add to this journey that we've all been on for the past hour is that I know sometimes people feel like they're doing okay, but they don't realize how stress is manifested in their body. And it's manifested by, depressed mood, changes in your sleep and eating patterns, difficulty sleeping, or concentrating. It also impacts your existing medical problems. So stress can make your chronic health problems even worse. And it also can worsen your mental health conditions as well. Some people may increase their use of tobacco. Others may increase their use of alcohol and other substances. And the way that, we can respond to that is to take care of ourselves. We can move, as everyone has been saying today. I know with my mom, we encourage her to walk around in the house. And when she feels like it, she walks, up and down the driveway with her mask on, or she'll walk 3 houses down and back, and then she'll search for 4-leaf clovers in the yard. These are things that boost her mood. That importance of taking care of ourselves is so important. And the other thing, I've got to say this as a mental health professional, sometimes watching the news is way too much. You're seeing the same stories repeat. You're seeing the same images repeat. And, it's better sometimes just to turn that off, move, read a book.
It's fear-based. It's fear-based.
Yes. Read the Bible or whatever else you moves you. Read poetry, but that watching the news repeatedly can cause harm. There are other ways to find information.
I want to touch on that and just add a little something to that. Let me put a comma. Not only are you reading the Bible, but guess what? You're getting up in the middle of your living room, you're dancing, you're putting on your favorite music, right? You're being active, you're having fun. You follow what I'm saying? You're writing. Write, people, express yourself. Find a voice, even if your mouth is closed, still have your voice going on, and then make it active with movement and putting things and thoughts on words. Go back to those words later on at the end of the week and reread that. Read it to your family, read it to your husband, read it to your wife, read it to your children, but get that expression out, right? Have a poetry night with your family, right? You know what I'm saying? Dance with your family, spend time where you're just alive and you're encouraged. Don't wait for someone to make fun. You be the master of your fun in your environment and elevate your thoughts, people. That is the answer. That's what we have to do. Daily.
Music.
Daily.
Beautiful.
You hit it. And music, you gotta have music.
Gotta have music.
Music will change your whole MO. What you was thinking about, you put on the right song. I'm sorry, music has that power. So you've got to use it. It helps with that brain to speak to it in another way that sometimes words can't. So use us, use the musicians, use the singers, use the song, whatever it is. Get up, dance with us. Look, my favorite. Let's stay together. Loving you whether times are good or bad, or happy or sad.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Can I just say something? Regina Belle just sung to me.
Real talk.
I really want to thank you, Regina. I'm gonna have to get your number because I'm gonna get your 3 miles up to 6. So I'm gonna hold you on the phone. I will say one more thing away from Dolvett, and I would like our community to start to do this. When you're talking on the phone to somebody in your house, move. Instead of sitting down having a conversation, move. When you are sitting down having a conversation, you are hurting yourself. When you move and have a conversation, you're adding steps to your life. So step into your life by taking steps instead of sitting down on yourself while you're having a conversation. This is Munson Steve, Regina Belle, Dr. Faison, Dolvett Quince, and this has been powered by AARP. We love you. Love yourself, because we depend on all of you, but we can only depend on you if you've loved yourself first.
Yes.
You don't have to be in the streets, but you do have to be in the struggle. Love you guys. Thanks so much. Dolvett, I'm gonna give you.
Thank you.
I got you. Dr. Faison. Regina,
Thanks.
glad you added song. I wasn't gonna beg for a song, but Dolvett, we did get a song. So
That was a layup. That was a layup.
Yeah.
I got y'all.
thanks everybody. Appreciate you.
Thank you guys.
You.
Thank